I am Ellie Edmundson, President of Pitt County Youth for Justice and Change.
Hi, my name is Lauren Bordeaux, and I'm actually the former president of Pitt County Youth for Justice and Change. I started the group with a couple of my friends, and then later people got involved. It's a spinoff of the March for Our Lives group because we organized the March for Our Lives rally in 2018, and I'm happy to see where the group has gone since then.
I'm Jairo Cota. I'm just a member of Pitt County Youth for Justice and Change, but it feels really good to support the community in this way.
Thank you so much for being here, having y'all on today. We have a lot of important stuff to talk about. It really goes along with what's going on in our country right now and the atmosphere and everyone's feelings. As I'm sure you know, there has been a huge movement and shift in the Black Lives Matter movement where it's becoming big on the media. And today we're here to talk about that to you and have a discussion with two people of color on their feelings behind it as well. So I want to start out by giving a timeline of the background of victims of police brutality and white vigilantes. In 2014, Tamar Rice of Cleveland, Ohio, was killed by cops, and he was 12 years old. No one was charged in the crimes. 2015, Freddie Gray of Baltimore, Maryland, was also killed. He was 25 years old, and as well, no one was charged in the crime. In 2016, Arlington Sterling of Baton Rouge, Louisiana, was killed, and no one was charged in the crime. 2018, Stephon Clark of Sacramento, California, was killed. No one was charged in the crime. In 2020, March 13th, Breonna Taylor was killed. Of Louisville, Kentucky, and no one has been charged in the crime. In 2020, Ahmaud Arbery was killed of Atlanta, Georgia. He was 25 years old. The two white vigilantes have been charged in the crime. 2020, May 5th, George Floyd was killed of Minneapolis, Minnesota, and officers have been charged in the crime. So I'm here today to talk to y'all about these crimes, about the movement, and the Black Lives Matter movement as people of color and how you feel about it as well. So my first question for y'all is, how do you feel about the reaction happening around the country to the most recent murder of George Floyd?
Well, I think the reactions have been pretty productive and efficient. I mean, we've been able to see the actual behavior of the police brutality and the behavior of cops that the Black community has experienced for hundreds of years. And so bringing attention and light to this has caused many catalysts, so many like white people or non-Black people are starting to get involved and to educate themselves on what's happening. They're starting to support the Black community more than they ever have now. And they're on the front lines with us, which I think is really good because police won't necessarily shoot at white people on the front line, as we've seen in with the protests in Michigan, the First Amendment ones about quarantine. But when you stand with your Black brothers and sisters, it makes a statement, and it also says we're all in this together. And on a very important note, it's shown how Donald Trump is just incompetent. He uses military force as a way to cope with a way to fight against the Black Lives Matter movement, and to furthermore say, I don't care about Black people, their lives are inferior, and I'm going to use brute force, which is the opposite way you should handle this. The Black Lives Matter movement isn't about violence, it's about peaceful protesting, it's about structural change, which, as the president, he can do. But he chooses to go the opposite route, the route that he should not go, in my opinion, and use military force.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree. I've been seeing videos of white people standing alongside their Black brothers and sisters on the front lines, acting as a shield to protect them because of the feeling that their Black brothers and sisters are more likely to experience police brutality in that sense when they're protesting like that. So they are acting as a shield, and I see that, and it's such a beautiful picture of encouragement and standing alongside people.
Yeah, for sure. I've thoroughly enjoyed seeing that too, and it's just really important that at the same time you have to understand why they're standing with them, like you're talking about, with police not as likely to shoot white people as they are to attack black people, and the history behind it, which I think is really important. I think when you aren't black, you oftentimes forget about the impact of slavery, because you don't have to remember every day the shade of your skin and how you have to change the tone of your voice, or the little things about you to assimilate into society to make sure that you're not looked upon as a criminal or as someone to be wary of. So it's important to understand the history of why all of this matters.
Yeah, and it's important to learn every day. I mean, I learn every day stuff that I've never learned before, and how to respectfully be an ally as well as a white person, what to say and what not to say. And I learn from my actions every day, and I just have to keep remembering and keep being conscious about what I'm doing. Yeah. So how do you feel?
I think the whole protests are great. I mean, it's really getting the word out, and as you mentioned with all these other victims, people haven't been charged. People have gone on and they haven't faced any consequences for these things. So it's really important that we bring that to the light and not let these people just fade away. We don't let this fade off into silence.
Say their names.
Say their names.
Say their names. And I agree. And I think the most recent victims, their perpetrators have been charged. And I think that is also a sign of going forward as well. It's not the end goal, but I think that it's making people more aware of that there are consequences to your actions, and if you are going to be racist, you're going to pay for it. And I think that the media is really showing folks just how passionate people are about this movement, and I don't think it's going to go away. I think that people are going to start to listen rather, and that's just a feeling that I have about it. And in order to do that, we need to keep being passionate about it. We cannot let this fade away. And I think people are really starting to listen.
I think so too. And on the same note, it's important, like you said, there are consequences for your actions now, and it's important for the structures that these people commit the crimes in. So the police and so mainly the police, that they change the way they train their officers.
Yes.
Because there are many biases in that training, and also why would an officer act like that if they weren't trained to act like that? So it's an insight to the structures that America has, for sure.
Definitely. And I think we need to change those structures. It starts on the inside and goes outward.
Yeah.
Definitely. So how do you feel about the reaction that we're having here in our home in Pitt County? We know that we had some protests and we had some violence going on. We had some destruction of property. How do you feel about that happening in our home?
Well, to just say this to point blank straight, merchandise, materials, property, they can be replaced, they can be fixed, it's something that is replaceable. But black lives aren't replaceable. Time after time, history's shown that we're inferior, that we're disposable. And so with that being said, the violence isn't necessarily the best way to go. I totally agree. But it's just pent up frustration. And also, the violence isn't started by peaceful protesters, which I don't think is being said enough. The violence is started by white supremacists, first of all, who are posing as Antifa, and they start violence and they stir up things within the protests, and also gang members. And violence in a gang is the whole point of a gang, or a side point of it. And so with the violence that's going on, people are focusing on it too much, and they're not seeing that peaceful protesters aren't even doing it. And it's blurring the message. The message is that there's police brutality against black people, and there's racism in this country that needs to be fixed. So first of all, with that whole thing, I think Greenville has done an okay job in addressing the violence part. I've seen a lot of restaurants downtown post that they stand with George Floyd, they understand, and it can be replaced. That's okay. And it's unfortunate that it's during a quarantine you haven't been getting as much business, but it's still replaceable. But I think the way that we marched on Sunday was amazing. It shows that police brutality isn't just an urban thing or suburban thing. It's a rural thing too. It's experienced everywhere, and it should be in rural areas as well, because people can get away with things a lot easier because there's not as many checks and balances, I would say. So I'm very proud of the people who marched on Sunday, and I think they did a great job. And I'm sad that they got hijacked by, I believe it was gang members, but I think they did a really good job. And and on the side note of how our city has handled it, I think they've handled it okay. We do have a curfew, which I have some thoughts about. I do. I have thoughts about everything, but I have some thoughts about it. I think the curfew is mainly used to stop people from protesting. And I understand they're trying to approach it from the stance of we just don't want more violence in our community. But when you are putting a curfew or a stamp on something, it's saying, okay, you have to stop this right here. You can't go on. Like, it's kind of saying we don't care about your movement and we don't care about this, but we care about the glass in our city, the glass windows, which is saying we care about materials more than we care about Black lives. And so I think that should be reconsidered in how we approach the problem of violence. And I think that we shouldn't have necessarily a curfew, because people should be allowed to express themselves and to not be limited, because this always happens with Black protests. We always get pushed down or pushed aside, but yet white counterparts, not necessarily counterparts, but when white people, when they protest, there's not any restrictions. We saw people at the Capitol in Raleigh with guns, and that was okay. But for people who want to peacefully protest in the street past sundown, they can't do that. Mm-hmm. So I think it's very restrictive.
Mm-hmm. I also want to bring up, I saw that you marched the other day with at the courthouse.
Yeah.
Can you tell us about that?
Well, I went to the interfaith clergy vigil that they had for police brutality and the Black Lives Matter movement, and I think it was moving. It's really nice to see when people come together from all kinds of religions, and we can understand what's going on and cope with it. And I really liked it. And I think whatever you have to do to understand this is bad, you should do it. And but that being said, you shouldn't approach the structural change with that mindset. You should approach it with history and knowing your context, and knowing that more things have to be done besides praying about victims. You need to make sure that you can go into your local areas and stand with those people who are Black Lives Matter movement and demand the same rights as them.
Mm-hmm. And also, lastly, my last question for you, we'll go on. I also saw that you posted something that really made me think for a little bit, that there are more ways that we can stand behind our Black folks as well by supporting their local businesses. Can you tell me about that as well?
Well, I think it has to do with this new wave of allyship and wanting to contribute to the Black Lives Matter movement. And not everybody can be on the front lines, and that's okay. There are multiple ways to protest and to contribute to the Black community and to support the Black community. And also, it's quarantine, so you have to be safe about it. Not everyone can go. But there are multiple ways. There's supporting Black businesses. You making sure you're shopping at them. There's supporting Black eateries, making sure that you're buying their food. And that's also a different way of supporting the Black community as well. And there are many forms of activism. You can donate to many. I know there are many freedom funds going on right now, but make sure that that's a freedom fund and not just a scam, because this is also an opportune time for people to scam other people off of tragedy. Mm-hmm. So there are many forms of allyship, and you can choose the path that you want to go on, and that's the freedom of it. You don't have to just be marching outside. Like, there are other ways.
Yeah. Jairo, I saw that you utilized social media the other day to express your opinions on what is going on in Pitt County and the country. Can you tell me about that?
Well, first off, I just want to say I'm really proud of everybody who actually went out and used their voice to uplift this cause. Honestly, I think it's great that people are going out there and using their voice. Like, after 400 plus years of disenfranchisement, this is just another example of people being silenced. This is another example of people being almost restricted their voice, being left powerless. So this persistence, and if we keep going with this, it's gonna have an effect. Like that's, I have no doubt about that. So I don't know. I forgot where I was going with this. I don't know. I get really heated about this, but it's great to see people doing what they think is right and standing up for people who would usually be silenced and treated like nothing.
Yeah, definitely. I agree. All right, so my next question, something that I really think about every day as a white person is how can I help and how can I stand behind this while also being respectful and being courteous of other people as well. So what can non-Black people do to support an ally around the movement respectfully?
I think what I just mentioned, the different ways of supporting and contributing to the Black community, but also besides money and besides buying and protesting, I think that one, staying well read on what's going on, making sure that you have read sources that have talked about police brutality and racism and ways that you understand the historical context and why it's so important, and to keep up with the reading. Another way too is listening to your black friends, your Black brothers and sisters, because it's hard. You can't necessarily formulate an opinion on something that you've never experienced. And so listening to them and then creating your opinion based off of them and supporting them in what they do, which is really important, and just listening. And sometimes listening is just the best thing, and standing with them and saying, hey, you know what? I got you. Whatever you need, I got you. I will stand next to you. I can help donate stuff to bring to the protest. You know, that's the little things that count too. You don't necessarily have to be, up in their grill and like, what can I, eager to help, which you should be, but, you do it in a respectful way. You don't have to overload people or overwhelm, but asking, hey, like once a day or something like that. Just saying, hey, anything I can do? Anything that changed? Did I miss something that I should have read? Have you read this? Or seeing them in the article maybe that they haven't read too. Because it shows people that I care. And also sometimes even posting on social media links to donate and things like that, they show that you care. And also donating yourself, because you don't want to be a hypocrite about it. But I think those are the ways that to be a good ally.
Mm-hmm. I definitely agree. Jairo, what do you think about that?
I mean, it's the Black Lives Matter movement. So as a non-Black individual, I am kind of in the same boat as you, finding out kind of ways that I can try and help, ways that I can support the Black community without, bringing my own struggles as a person of color into the mix. Because, I mean, at the end of the day, this should be about Black lives. We're putting a focus on this, giving them the voice that they need and helping empower them. So, I'm in a similar boat, just trying to figure out how to help in my own way.
Yeah, definitely.
And I think also being able to you can relate with them on a certain level because you are a person of color. So your people too have been mistreated by police and continue as well, truthfully. And so I think even finding ways to relate to them, even it's not trying to demean or degrade, but saying, oh, hey, like, have you seen this article that talks about this and that? I think it relates to your movement as well. And asking them, how can we make our movement as big as yours? Or what can we do to empower each other? Mm-hmm. Which I think is the really amazing part about it as well.
Yeah.
So we are Pitt County Youth for Justice and Change. We're a youth group. So what can the youth do to support the movement and end/prevent the unlawful killings of Black men and women as young people?
I think, or when I went to school here 3 years ago, I do remember some of my friends saying they had to watch their Black friends be searched when they went to school. Microaggressions like that. And I think what we can do as the youth is we have to make sure that we hold those power structures accountable for what they did and stand up for our Black friends in situations that they necessarily wouldn't be able to. And so I'd say holding power structures accountable, and also checking your non-black friends when they say something that's not necessarily nice or rude or racist. Tell them to their face that they're wrong, and say, this is why you're wrong, XYZ. Back it up, of course, because sometimes people need a little bit more convincing. But yeah, hold people accountable, and also stand up for your black friends when they're not able to.
Well, could you repeat the question, please? Sorry.
What can we as youth do to support the movement?
Well, I mean, right now, this is going to tread into the social media territory, but we've all got a voice. We've all got our own platform, and it's really more accessible than it ever has been. We've heard it time and time again. We're the future. We're the next generation. We're the change makers. And, I mean, this is really our chance to come forward and show that, to prove that to people. And if you support the movement, you have the power in your pocket to go out and do what you can.
Yeah.
Speaking of social media, it's a really big platform nowadays, and I think that that we are able to actually see videos of black men and women being mistreated by the police and being killed by the police really shows us just how real it is, because it's happened forever, but before we only heard about it, we didn't see it. But now with social media, we can see what's going on, and the information is coming to us as quickly as it can be. So how can we utilize social media to continue this movement and to use our voices?
Well, definitely, as we've seen, a lot of the people who stand with Black Lives Matter, they've been posting videos of police brutality or people take videos and they post them. And I think that's really good because we're spreading awareness. But also, you have to be careful that it's not just posting tragedy after tragedy. But to say, like, this stuff happens and this is proof and evidence, because that can help in a legal sense. And also with social media, like you said, it's a great platform to use and to repost things. But one thing to be wary of is to make sure that what you're posting is true, and that you double-check your sources, and also that it's not performative. Even though posting on social media is very it can easily become performative, because you can say, yeah, I support Black Lives Matter, here are links, etc., and I'm done. But the movement doesn't stop there. You need to continue going, and it's not. Posting shouldn't give you clout or fame. It should be something that you continue to do and you continue to practice, and you go further than that as well to show that you truly do care about the Black Lives Matter movement.
Yeah, recently with the Blackout Tuesday, where everyone was posting a black picture, I have seen people that I wouldn't have expected before to post something, and it was people
easy.
It was very easy to do that. People that have never posted about the movement before were posting Blackout Tuesday, and I found that very interesting, how people are just posting a black picture, and I posted one too, but I think that I also speak out very often about these issues, and it was people that I've never seen speak out before.
And also during this time, people are calling others out. If you don't do something, people are going to call you out, and you're ashamed, which I'm okay with, because it's where black people are fed up. It's gone way too far, and it has to get better. And so we all have to be a part of this change. And so people posting a black box, like, they had, in some sense, I did feel like it was performative, because for the people who've never posted stuff before, because they're trying to say, okay, like, don't shame me, I did something, but it should go further than that.
Definitely. What do you think, Jairo?
I think this is also a chance for new people to get involved. I mean, although it does have like a performative sense to it, we also kind of have to remember that sometimes people just have been sheltered away from this. People haven't been educated on this, and this is perhaps the first time that they've decided, hey, I'm tired of it. I'm going to go educate myself. I'm going to be part of this movement. So, I mean, I don't want to isolate anybody and say, oh, you're just doing this for clout, you're just doing this for fame, or it's your white guilt causing you to do this, because sometimes there's a whole, like, a reason for it. There's a motive behind it.
Yeah, I think so. I agree with both sides of it. I think there's always an intention behind something, and I think you have to think about what are your intentions when you post something. What do you want to come out of this? Do you want to spread information? Do you want to look cool? Do you want to look like you're a part of it? What are you doing? So I think that's a big part. Social media is so prevalent in our generation, and it could be used for good and bad. It has both ways.
For sure.
It has a lot of power as well, and a lot of power for manipulation. But we are running out of time, so I would like to end with a moment of silence for the victims, to remember them and to remember that we can never forget them.